Digistar projectors use a single 7-inch cathode ray tube to produce an image covering a large theater dome. The CRT must be driven to its maximum brightness to produce acceptable images. Because of this, the CRT wears out quicker than a typical television or computer monitor tube. In general, you should replace your projector's CRT approximately once per year, depending on use. If you develop large burns on the phosphor screen, you should consider replacing the CRT no matter what its age. Large burns can lead to internal arcing, causing more burns and possibly damaging other parts of the projector. A new CRT should be installed annually to maintain a quality picture. Because CRTs require frequent replacement, Digistar projectors have been designed to make this process relatively easy. This instructional video describes specifically how to replace the CRT in your Digistar II projector. Although there are some differences, the basic procedure also applies to SU and LIA projectors used in Digistar I systems. Note that you may notice minor appearance variations in your projector from the D2 projector shown in the video. This procedure does not apply to pre-SU Digistar projectors, although the basic concept is very similar. These projectors can be identified by the lambda digital power supply displays at the base of the projector cabinet. This procedure assumes that you have basic electronic and mechanical skills. You must know how to operate and interpret basic amplitude readings from an oscilloscope. This instructional video is not intended to replace Digistar II maintenance training offered by Evans & Sutherland Corporation. If you have attended the E&S Digistar II maintenance course, this video will serve as a refresher in the event you haven't changed a tube in a while.
Warning: all Digistar projectors contain lethal voltages. Misuse of the procedures described in this video can result in equipment damage, personal injury, or death.
Before we begin, here is a list of tools and parts you will need to replace your CRT. Digistar II Technician's Guide, Revision C or later. This is also available online from the D2 workstation. Focus Alignment Generator, commonly referred to as a jitter box. One of these was shipped with your system. Spot Knocker. One of these was shipped with your system as well. New CRT, or a refurbished CRT from MII. Oscilloscope with ×10 probes. The oscilloscope should have a minimum bandwidth of 60 MHz. 2 probes are recommended, although only 1 is required. Red and white light flashlights. Both types are recommended. Miscellaneous hand tools. Although only screwdrivers are required, you might want to have other tools on hand. Insulated screwdriver blade alignment tool, commonly referred to as a tweaker. Have a spare in case you lose it. One was shipped with your projector. Assistant. This person should know first aid and how to turn off equipment power in case of an accident. Common vinyl electrical tape. About 3 inches should do. Time. Sufficient time to perform the procedure without rushing. Binoculars. Binoculars may be needed for fine lens focusing on large domes. Projector door and key switch keys. These are needed to unlock doors and operate key switches. They may already be located in the projector. Optical pads and compressed air. Use the same items that you use to clean precision lenses. Storage box for your old CRT. Always save your CRT shipping box. Anti-static bags. Used to store circuit cards during CRT replacement procedure. For D1 systems, refer to the following manuals. SU projectors. Digistar Field Service Guide. LIA projector. Digistar LIA projector O&M manual supplement. Please allow sufficient time to replace your CRT. The CRT is an expensive and delicate item. Avoid a CRT replacement just before an important theater event in case you have problems.
Caution: the CRT must be at room temperature 62 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 to 25 degrees Celsius, for at least 48 hours prior to installation.
Please take this into consideration during winter months. It is a good idea to have a spare CRT on site at all times at room temperature. Plan on the following times to perform the complete procedure. CRT replacement times: 1/2 hour to remove the old CRT, 1/2 hour to install the new CRT, 2 hours of spot knocking, 2 hours of burn-in, 2 hours for final adjustments. You must follow these rules to safely replace a CRT. Avoid contact with energized circuits. Lethal voltages are employed in Digistar projectors. If you must touch something while the projector is energized, try to use only one hand. The CRT itself is a fragile, expensive, and potentially dangerous item if dropped. The glass neck, base pins, and anode lead are the most delicate parts of the tube. Never work alone. Always have an assistant to help out and provide aid in the event of an accident. The assistant should know how to turn off the power and provide first aid if needed. Always discharge a CRT. CRTs can hold a high voltage charge even after the power is off. Discharge the CRT by shorting the anode lead bare wire to the metal projector frame. When handling the CRT, be aware that it can develop a significant static charge. This is similar to the shock you get walking across a carpeted floor and touching a doorknob. Although not harmful, the discharge can startle you enough to injure yourself or drop the tube. Never operate the CRT with the X-ray shielding removed. The metal shielding in the no-pot CRT assembly prevents exposure to harmful radiation from the CRT. There may be additional safety rules which are not listed here. For more safety information, check the safety section of the appropriate manuals. For Digistar I systems, Digistar Systems Field Service Guide. For Digistar II systems, Digistar II Technicians Guide. Finally, before we begin, it's necessary to identify a few parts that will be referred to during the procedures. No-pot CRT assembly. This assembly houses the CRT, deflection yoke, and focus coil. High voltage power supply. This is the 40,000 volt power supply for the CRT. Video card. This is the final video amplifier that drives the CRT. The video card plugs on the end of the neck of the tube. Ground strap. This is the high voltage power supply return from the video card. The yellow ground strap is the video card chassis ground connection.
Caution! It is extremely important that the ground strap from the spot knocker or video card is connected to the chassis lug anytime the projector is turned on.
Power drawer. This assembly contains power supplies and projector control logic. Correction card. This is the preamplifier for the projector. The correction card contains most of the projector's adjustable controls. Remote focus control. The static focus is controlled by a remote hand controller. Sue and Leah projectors do not have this remote feature. We are now ready to begin the CRT replacement process. Turn on any available work lights for maximum visibility of the projector cabinet. Remove any obstacles directly in front of and behind the Digistar II projector. End any Digistar sessions you have running on the D2 workstation. Unlock and remove all doors on the projector cabinet. The doors are provided with locks to keep out unauthorized personnel. Locate the key switches on the power drawer. If the keys are not installed, insert both keys for your projector. Turn the projector mode switch on the power drawer from remote to off. You may have to wait up to 8 minutes for the projector to completely power down. The projector is finished with the power down sequence when the deflection amplifier fans have stopped and all LEDs are red. Once all the LEDs are red, turn the sequencer key switch from on to off. Turn all circuit breakers on the front of the power drawer to the 0 or off position. Remove the main AC power cord from the rear of the projector. Remove the anode lead from the high voltage power supply by unscrewing the white nylon nut. Holding only the insulated part of the cable, pull the anode lead out of the high voltage power supply and immediately touch the end to the projector's chassis. Remove the bushing, nut, and tack from the anode wire. Store the anode lead parts in a safe place. You will need to reuse them. Important, save this hardware. The high voltage power supply anode lead connection is different on older SU projectors. Remove and save any hardware from the anode lead on those projectors as well. Carefully remove the video card from the CRT. Release the spring clips before removing the card. Do not allow the card to tip sideways during this procedure to avoid bending pins on the CRT. Once the video card has been removed, disconnect all cables from the card and store it in a safe place, preferably in an anti-static bag. Disconnect the X, Y, and dynamic focus cables that come from the no-pot CRT assembly. Disconnect the coax cables and DC power cables to all the amplifiers as well. Disconnect the static focus cable from the power drawer. Disconnect all BNC coax cables from the patch panel plate on the front of the projector. Disconnect the DC power and ribbon cables for the correction card. Remove the card by loosening the two mounting screws. Store the correction card in a safe place, preferably in an anti-static bag. Locate the two black knobs which secure the no-pot assembly. Have your assistant hold the base of the no-pot assembly so that it does not swing when the knobs are removed. Remove both of the knobs. Some SU projectors may have Phillips head screws instead of knobs. In this case, use a screwdriver. Once the knobs are removed, push the top plate down to remove tension between the CRT faceplate and the field flattener lens. This should be done before swinging the no-pot assembly down. Carefully pivot the no-pot assembly to the horizontal position.
Caution! The assistant will have to hold the no-pot assembly in this position during the CRT removal. Do not allow the no-pot assembly to swing while the CRT is being removed, or the tube may be broken.
The no-pot assembly pivots on two shoulder bolts. Some Leah and SU projectors may pivot the opposite direction from the D2 projector shown here, but the procedure is the same. Remove the CRT by pulling it out of the no-pot assembly, carefully guiding the anode lead as you do. Avoid contact with the anode lead bare wire. As you pull the tube out of the projector, it will build up a static charge. Periodically ground the anode lead to the projector frame to avoid getting a mild shock. The shock is harmless, but it could startle you enough to make you drop the CRT. Place the old CRT in a safe place as soon as possible. If you do not have the original shipping container for the old tube, put it in the new CRT box as soon as the new tube is installed. Save the old CRT so that it may be refurbished. Installing the new CRT is essentially the reverse of the removal procedure. Handle it very carefully. Inspect the phosphor screen for any defects. If there are significant defects, contact the supplier of the CRT. Before you install the new CRT, carefully clean the faceplate as you would any precision optical device. Don't be surprised if there is a static charge on the CRT. As soon as you pick it up, discharge the anode lead to the projector frame. Remove the protective cap from the CRT base. Have your assistant hold the no-pot CRT assembly so that it is horizontal. Feed the anode lead through the pass-through hole. Carefully slide the CRT through the deflection yoke into the no-pot assembly. Rotate the CRT so that the anode lead is adjacent to the cable trough. Again, ground the anode lead to the projector frame to discharge it. Once the CRT is fully inserted, begin tilting the no-pot assembly back into place. Push down the plate to relieve the spring tension. This will prevent flaking off rubber particles onto the faceplate.
Important! The particles can later be mistaken for phosphor burns when an image is displayed.
Pull the no-pot assembly into place and reinstall both knobs. Make sure the assembly is properly seated. If the assembly sags, the CRT screen may not be parallel to the field flattener lens. This can cause stars to exhibit severe astigmatism. Reinstall the anode lead hardware you previously removed. Many Digistar projectors require you to install a piece of electrical tape on the anode lead to ensure positive contact in the high voltage power supply. Insert the anode lead into the high voltage power supply as far as it will go. You will feel the lead bottom out against a spring. Push the grommet into the power supply socket. Screw the nylon nut on and see if the anode lead stays put. If it doesn't, pull the anode lead out without disturbing the position of the grommet on the cable. Cut a 3-inch piece of tape and wrap it around the anode lead just above the grommet location. This will prevent the lead from sliding out. Connect the anode lead to the high voltage power supply. Then gently pull on the anode lead. It should not come out or feel loose.
Caution! High voltage arcing may occur if the anode lead is not properly seated. This could cause severe damage to your projector.
Coil up all the wires from the no-pot assembly so they do not touch anything except sheet metal. Reinstall the correction card, but do not connect any cables at this time. Do not reinstall the video card just yet. Although the new CRT is installed, we are not yet complete. We are now ready to power up the new CRT. Before we actually try to display an image, we must bring the tube up slowly. First, there is a procedure to remove contamination from the electron gun. We refer to this procedure as spot knocking. The spot knocker grounds all the pins of the electron gun while high voltage is applied to the anode. This procedure removes any loose debris from the electron gun. Spot knocking should be allowed to run for at least 2 hours. Locate and install the spot knocker on the base pins of the CRT. The connector is keyed so it will only attach one way. Connect the flat yellow ground strap to the chassis lug.
Caution, make sure you connect the ground strap to the chassis.
Verify that the X, Y, static focus, and dynamic focus cables from the no-pot assembly are not touching any circuit cards or other cables. Reconnect the AC power cable. The sequencer key switch on the power drawer should already be in the off position. Place all power drawer circuit breakers in the 1 or on position. Wait 10 seconds, then turn the projector mode key switch to the local position. The projector should power up immediately. You may hear a small amount of high voltage crackling. This is normal and should quiet down shortly.
Caution, turn off the projector if the crackling becomes significantly louder.
Recheck the anode lead connection to the high voltage power supply. Verify the spot knocker ground strap connection is secure. If you still have problems, the CRT may be defective. Open the lens cover by pressing the lens button on the power drawer. Verify that no light is visible in the projector's lens. Allow the process to continue for 2 hours. You may allow this process to continue longer than 2 hours if desired. This is recommended if some high voltage crackling is still noticeable or if the CRT is not quite temperature stabilized. After the spot knocking time has expired, there should be little or no crackling sound from the CRT while it is turned on. After the spot knocking procedure is complete, we will apply power to the electron gun and operate it without displaying an image. The filaments are lit up, but the tube is operated in a cut-off state. G2 is turned off, and the cathode voltage is at the blank level. Turn the mode switch from local to off. The projector should power down instantly. Place all circuit breakers in the off position. Remove the AC power cord. Carefully remove the spot knocker from the CRT. Reconnect all cables to the video card. Install the card on the CRT. Reconnect all DC power, coax, and ribbon cables to the correction card. Do not reconnect any other cables at this time. Using the tweaker, set the following correction card controls to the maximum counterclockwise setting. Threshold. The threshold control sets the DC level for the video signal. This control sets the correct bias level for the CRT. Threshold is usually adjusted with an oscilloscope. Intensity. The intensity control sets the gain of the video amplifier. This control is always adjusted with an oscilloscope. G2. The G2 control sets the G2 voltage applied to the CRT. This control is set visually, but it is in the vicinity of 1000 volts DC. Set the beam switch to the off position. The beam switch is used to enable or disable the G2 voltage. Turn the projector mode switch to local. The projector should power up immediately. Ignore the red X max and Y max LEDs on the correction card. Open the lens cover by pressing the lens button on the power drawer. Verify that no light is visible in the projector's lens. Allow the projector to run for a minimum of 2 hours. Once the burn-in procedure is complete, the brightness controls must be set up before we can safely display an image. Brightness is determined by the proper adjustment of threshold, G2, and intensity controls on the correction card.
Caution, if the brightness controls are not properly adjusted, the picture may appear incorrect. Improper settings can also cause burns on the phosphor screen. Note that phosphor screen burns are not warranted by E&S.
Turn the projector mode switch to the off position. Wait several minutes until the deflection amplifier fans have stopped. Verify that all the power supply LEDs are red. Turn off all circuit breakers on the power drawer. Disconnect the AC power cord from the projector. Reconnect all remaining projector cables that were previously disconnected during the CRT removal. Connect the DC power cable and yoke lead to the X amplifier. Connect the DC power cable and yoke lead to the Y amplifier. Connect the DC power cable and coil lead to the focus amplifier. Connect the static focus cable to the rear power drawer connector labeled static focus. Proper setup requires an oscilloscope to monitor a test point on the video card.
Warning: D2 operates on 230 volts AC.
Please be aware that the power outlets on the front of the D2 power drawer are 230 volts AC. If you connect the oscilloscope to one of these outlets, make sure the scope can handle this voltage or it will be severely damaged. Connect the scope probe from the oscilloscope to test point E32 or E33 on the video card. Once the oscilloscope is connected, it is time to turn on the projector. Turn the sequencer key switch on the power drawer to the on position. This is the normal position for this switch. Reconnect the AC power cord. Place all power drawer circuit breakers in the 1 or on position. Wait 10 seconds, then turn the projector mode key switch to the local position. The projector should power up normally. All power supply LEDs except fan should eventually turn green. Remember that the sequencer may take up to 8 minutes to finish the power-up cycle. Turn on the oscilloscope and allow it a few minutes to warm up. Ground the scope probe and adjust the vertical centering for 0 volts DC at the bottom of the screen grid. Set the vertical sensitivity to 20 volts per vertical division. And set the horizontal sweep speed to 2 milliseconds per horizontal division. We are now ready to set the brightness adjustments.
Caution: if you get unexpected results from any step, do not proceed. Recheck all previous steps. If there is an unusually bright or unexpected light from the projector, turn it off immediately. If you are still having problems, contact E&S technical support.
Purposely adjust the static focus so that the image will be out of focus. You can do this by pressing one of the buttons on the remote focus controller for a few seconds, or rotating the static focus knob on SU and Leah projectors. Allow the projector a minimum of 20 minutes to warm up before performing any adjustments. Make certain that G2, intensity, and threshold are set to the maximum counterclockwise position. The beam switch should also be off. Log on and start a Digistar session at the console. Turn off all theater lights and open the lens cover. Issue the following commands to draw the stars at 1% brightness. Declare global stars. Adjust stars brightness 1. Attitude inertial 600. Draw stellar stars. The oscilloscope display should show a horizontal line at approximately plus 140 volts DC. Adjust threshold for plus 130 volts DC. Turn the threshold control clockwise so that the line splits into 2 lines. The bottom line should read plus 130 volts DC. The top line should still read about plus 140 volts DC. Verify that there is no light coming from the projector's lens. At the workstation, adjust the brightness of the stars to 100%. Adjust stars brightness 100. Slowly turn the intensity control clockwise to move the bottom line on the oscilloscope downward. The bottom line will transform into individual pulses depending on your oscilloscope setting. Adjust the oscilloscope triggering as necessary to view a stable picture. The most negative dot should be Sirius.
Caution: the bottom tip of Sirius should not extend below plus 60 volts DC on the oscilloscope.
Verify that there is still no light coming from the projector's lens. Power the projector down as described before. When the projector is completely down, disconnect the scope probe from the video card. At the console, adjust the brightness of the stars to 1%. Adjust stars brightness 1. Power up the projector and wait at least 10 minutes before proceeding. Open the lens cover. Turn all the theater lights off and wait until you are dark adapted. Turn the beam switch on the correction card to the on position. Click the beam icon at the console so that it turns green.
Important: note that both the beam switch on the correction card and the beam icon at the console must be enabled before you can adjust G2.
Slowly turn G2 clockwise until a faint glow is seen in the projector's lens. As soon as you notice individual patches of light, stop turning the G2 control. Adjust the remote focus control until the dots appear sharp. If you cannot see any light in the lens, turn G2 maximum counterclockwise and turn the beam switch to the off position. Shut down the projector as described before and reconnect the oscilloscope probe to the video card test point. Power up the projector and enable the beam. Try setting threshold to somewhere between plus 115 volts DC and plus 125 volts DC. Reset the video level to plus 60 volts DC using the intensity control. Remove the oscilloscope probe and set G2 again, as described previously. Continue to increase the G2 level until stars are just visible on the dome. Do not adjust G2 so high that a hot dot appears on the center of the dome. Because this dot is never blanked, a hot dot can burn the CRT if left on for more than a few seconds. The ideal setting of G2 is somewhere between just appearing on the dome and just appearing in the lens. The idea is to set G2 just high enough so that 1% objects are totally invisible on the dome, endpoints do not appear as gaps or bright points, no hot dot is ever visible in the lens or on the dome. What this means is that G2 should be set just high enough for 1% stars to be barely visible in the lens for small domes. For large theaters, the 1% stars will be just below visibility on the dome. In theory, the brightness adjustments are complete for most systems. Sometimes you need to make small visual adjustments to compensate for your particular projector or dome. Be aware that the brightness settings will drift as the CRT ages. G2 seems to drift the most. It will most likely need resetting after about 1 week of operation. Unless there are other problems, you can quickly readjust G2 without the oscilloscope. In general, you should readjust all brightness settings several times a year. Digistar projectors use magnetic focusing to create small dots on the phosphor screen. The focus coil must be carefully aligned with the CRT electron beam for the smallest spot size. Whenever you replace the CRT in the projector, the coil must be realigned to produce the best picture. Digistar projectors mount the focus coil in a micro positioner that allows precise alignment of the coil using 4 adjustable knobs. X-translate moves coil side to side. Y-translate moves coil front to back. X-tilt rotates coil side to side. Y-tilt rotates coil front to back. A special piece of test equipment known as the jitter box is used to align the coil. The jitter box temporarily replaces the static focus coil power supply in the power drawer. The jitter box has 3 knobs. Focus. This knob sets the DC offset. It operates the same as static focus. Amplitude. This knob sets the amplitude of focus variations. Frequency. This knob sets the rate at which the focus varies. The technician aligns the focus coil by turning knobs on the micropositioner while observing the projected image. When the image is correct, the jitter box is disconnected and the focus coil is reconnected to the static focus power supply. Power down the projector. Turn the mode switch from local to off. Wait until the projector is completely shut down. Before starting the focus coil alignment procedure, it is best to zero the controls on the micropositioner. This means setting the adjustment wheels so that the coil is visually centered and square to the CRT. Disconnect the static focus cable from the back of the power drawer. Plug the output cable from the jitter box into the static focus cable you just removed. Plug the jitter box AC power cable into one of the service outlets on the front of the projector.
Caution! On D2 systems, the jitter box is hardwired for 230 volts AC operation.
Turn on the jitter box power switch. Adjust the amplitude and frequency controls to the maximum counterclockwise position. Turn on the projector, turn off the theater lights, and display the stars as follows. Reset. Declare global stars. Attitude inertial 600. Draw stellar stars. Open the lens cover by pressing the lens button on the power drawer. The stars may appear out of focus. Adjust the jitter box focus control for the sharpest image. Now position yourself so that you can access the alignment wheels on the micropositioner.
Caution! This procedure must be done with the projector powered on. Observing the image may cause some disorientation in certain persons.
Adjust the jitter box amplitude and frequency controls so that the image begins to fluctuate in and out of focus. Adjust the amplitude controls until the stars increase to about 4 times their normal size. The frequency should be set for about 3 times per second. The actual settings are not critical. Leave the focus control alone. The image will probably change position as it fluctuates in and out of focus. This indicates that the coil is out of alignment. The objective is to rotate the red wheels on the micropositioner until the movement is minimized. Begin by turning either the X or Y translate wheel. Rotate the wheel until the image movement is minimized or until it changes the direction it is moving. Now turn the other translate wheel and do the same. Do not look only at a single star during the alignment. Judge the entire picture. Repeat adjusting X and Y translate wheels until no further improvement is noticed. By now, the image shift should be minimal. Slightly increase the amplitude setting on the jitter box. Repeat X and Y translate adjustments for minimum shift. If there is still noticeable shift, turn the X and Y tilt controls until all motion is minimized. Use only enough tilt to do the job. See if you can further reduce the image shift by turning the X and Y translate controls. You will probably not eliminate all movement in the picture. When you cannot improve the picture any further, Adjust the amplitude and frequency controls to the maximum counterclockwise position. Observing the stars, slowly adjust the focus control in and out of focus. If the coil is correctly aligned, stars will appear round with the brightest area centered in the dot. Whenever the star is defocused, the image will not shift in position. The most important thing to remember is to use a minimum amount of tilt. When the alignment is completed, power down the projector. When the power down cycle is complete, disconnect the jitter box and reconnect the static focus cable to the power drawer. Turn on the projector and adjust the picture for best focus using the remote focus controller. The spacing between the CRT phosphor screen and the lens is extremely critical. Whenever a new CRT is installed, the spacing is never exactly the same due to differences in glass thickness and mechanical play. For this reason, the Digistar projector lens needs to be focused when the CRT is replaced. Adjusting optical focus is relatively easy. Display the stars so that the Pleiades star cluster is visible about halfway up the dome. The easiest way is to enable the control dials and use the attitude inertial dials to adjust the position. Rotate the lens to adjust the Pleiades for best focus. If you have trouble determining the optimum setting, have an assistant observe the Pleiades with binoculars. This technique is most useful for large domes. Have the assistant note spot size and space between each star. Best focus will show sharp stars with maximum spacing. Make small rotations of the lens and ask the assistant if the picture is better or worse. Repeat until no improvement is seen. You will probably get fingerprints on the lens during focusing. After focus is set, clean the lens to remove fingerprint oil and dust. Use clean compressed air to remove dust and dirt. Use optical cleaning pads or other lens cleaning solutions to wipe off the lens. The CRT can never be installed in exactly the same position. Fortunately, there are adjustments to properly realign the projector's image to the dome. Begin by displaying the celestial grids such that the horizon has a grid line all the way around the perimeter of the dome. The following play file displays the celestial grids at attitude inertial 0, 90, 0, with the celestial equator at the edge of the picture. Set directory, Digistar, hardware. Reset. Play grids. Adjust the east-west or right-left position of the picture by turning the X center control labeled R146 on the correction card. Adjust the front-back or north-south position of the picture by turning the Y center control labeled R144 on the correction card. Adjust the east-west or right-left size of the picture by turning the X size control labeled R142 on the correction card. Adjust the north-south or front-back size of the picture by turning the Y size control, labeled R136 on the correction card. Recheck the centering of the image and adjust if necessary. Before you put everything away, make sure that the projector is ready for normal operation. Put the projector mode switch in the remote position. Verify the beam switch on the correction card is in the on position. If the beam icon is green on the console GUI, the beam LED on the correction card will be green. Verify that the beam icon can be turned off and on from the Digistar console. The image from the projector lens should follow the beam icon. Verify that the lens cover can be opened and closed remotely from the Digistar console. If the lens status is out of step with the physical position of the lens cover, press the lens button on the power drawer. Run through a Digistar show you're familiar with. Verify that all images and projector, beam, and lens functions appear correct. Verify that the defocus function is working properly.
Important: if you have any problems with lens cover, beam, or defocus functions, verify that the projector control cable is properly connected to the power drawer.
Finally, reinstall all the doors on the projector, and the CRT installation process is complete. Congratulations! Please contact E&S if you have questions about procedures shown in this video. If you are unable or uncomfortable replacing your CRT, please contact one of the following phone numbers to arrange a service call. In North America, 1-800-582-4375. In Europe, 440-177-220-460. In Japan, 81-43-274-460. 1-800-801-8435 and worldwide 1-801-588-1088. You may also leave an email for technical support at the following address: essupport@es.com.